Coming up ahead in this episode of Xtalks Spotlight.
The real key is to connect all of these stages from early to late with a common formulation philosophy, one that ensures continuity of performance, stability, and manufacturability throughout the program. And that really starts again with knowing the molecule's DNA, understanding both its obvious challenges as well as its more subtle challenges.
Hello, and welcome to Xtalks Spotlight, illuminating insights from subject matter experts and industry thought leaders. I'm Sonia Hunt. In this episode, we're exploring how integrated drug development strategies can accelerate the journey from early discovery to commercialization.
Drug development starts with knowing the molecule, rapidly profiling its physicochemical, biopharmaceutical, and manufacturability traits to anticipate challenges, bridging early discovery to market readiness. In this Xtalks Spotlight edition, I sat down with Dr. Dave Miller, Chief Scientific Officer at AustinPx, to discuss how integrated development tools can accelerate programs from concept to commercialization. During the discussion, Dr. Miller explained how aligning preformulation, formulation, and process design around the molecule's intrinsic properties can help create data-driven development paths that support both speed to clinic and long-term commercial viability. Thank you so much for taking the time for this Spotlight interview, Dave.
Thank you. My pleasure. It's great to be here. Looking forward to the discussion.
So to begin, what does bridging early discovery to market readiness really mean in today's development landscape?
When we talk about bridging early discovery to market readiness, what we're really talking about is building a development strategy that connects every stage of the journey, from our first initial pre-formulation experiments all the way to commercial manufacturing. And it's not just about getting into the clinic quickly. It's about setting the stage for success later on, like in late stage development and scale up and eventually to launch. So what we found is that rigor and foresight on the front end without massive investment can prevent a lot of dead ends down the road. So at AustinPx, we believe if you sort of carefully examine, the genetic makeup of the molecule, if you will, then you can make accurate predictions about its developmental journey. So we deeply examine the compound on initiation using in silico tools and detailed pre-formulation protocols, material science, thoroughly characterizing the drug substance too, the bulk drug substance, which provides early manufacturing insights that will anticipate challenges before they appear in the lab or even worse on the manufacturing floor, so that every decision that we make thereafter is fully informed to nurture that compound towards a stable, scalable, bioavailable product that can succeed at every stage of development and, clinic willing, eventually graduate to the market. So that's what we mean when we talk about bridging early discovery to market readiness.
And Dave, what are some key considerations for drug developers when they're facing uncertainty about their formulation strategy?
That's a really good question because every development team, faces this crossroads at some point, and we find that it's all about mitigating risk. So at one end of the spectrum, if you've got a BCS class 1 compound that's soluble and permeable, then the risk is very low. You can usually go straight into the clinic with a simple fit for purpose formulation, and that allows you to learn what you need to learn about the compound in the clinic very quickly. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got insoluble BCS class 2 or 4 molecules. And in those cases, the risk to your clinical program is much higher. With those types of molecules, you really need to invest in formulation design early, because if you can't get exposure, you won't get efficacy, and an otherwise great molecule will be, wrongfully discarded. A potential therapy ends up on the cutting room floor unnecessarily. But so you've got those two ends of the spectrum, but the really tricky part comes with those borderline molecules that are in the middle, those that have some liabilities that may impact bioavailability. But the question is, are there strategic workarounds to those limitations that still enable speedy clinical entry, to achieve the safety and efficacy milestones in the clinic that you're looking for without expending precious CMC resources on the front end. For example, many teams will elect to push ahead with a simple formulation just at a higher dose if bioavailability is somewhat limited, just to get to that point of showing safety and efficacy, and with the plan of optimizing the drug product if and when clinical milestones are achieved. And that approach can work, and we've seen it work, on a number of occasions, but it certainly comes with risks. For example, when interpatient variability in absorption is an issue with molecules that have some solubility issues, this can lead to underexposure in a portion of the patient population. So some fraction of the patients just don't absorb the drug well, and this shows up in a clinical study as non-responders to treatment. And it skews the data and it reduces the statistical response. So this is, the key risk is that your delivery system can actually impact whether or not you hit your primary, secondary endpoints in your clinical study. So AustinPx has a wealth of expertise from leading its own programs. We were a sponsor company in our recent history, and we know how to navigate these nuanced cases of, if you've got a molecule with some liabilities, what are the strategies to make sure you get into clinic quickly, but then you don't jeopardize the integrity of your clinical study. And we help the client decide when and how to apply speed and when you should take the necessary time to ensure the best clinical outcome. And then once we've figured out a fit for purpose, phase appropriate formulation direction, there's still a range of technologies to explore. And each of these technologies tend to have their pros and cons, in terms of performance, stability, scalability. And that's where we, AustinPx as a company, really shine. We have a full suite of tools for both conventional and enabled formulation development. And we run rapid screening protocols to generate comparative data between these different tools very quickly. And this allows our clients to make data-driven decisions about the best path forward for the program, not just about enablement and speed, but also within that, which tools are most appropriate for their molecule, which formulation technology should we deploy. So like in summary, it's really about understanding the molecule as well as the clinical requirements and the risks, and then using the data and our own experience in combination with our clients to design the most effective strategy.
Now, with the need to move quickly into clinical trials, how can teams also balance the importance of planning for late-stage and commercial success?
I touched on some of this in the previous question, but another key thing to think about in regards to this is thinking about how to maintain flexibility in early clinical stages when dosing ranges aren't yet known. In phase 1, for example, where you're running single or multiple ascending dose studies, you really need a formulation that allows you to adjust dosing precisely as feedback comes in. And this is where simple, adaptable approaches like powder in a bottle or suspension dosing are really valuable, and that they give you the ability to make rapid dose adjustments as you learn more about how the molecule behaves in humans. And then as you move into like phase 2A, you still need some dosing flexibility, but now the goal shifts towards refinement, where developing a dosage form that's easier to administer to actual patients. Some of these phase 2 studies are actually, take-home studies where the patients will take the medication home. So you'll need dosage forms like capsules or tablets in those cases. Yet the dosage form still needs to be tunable enough to support precise titration as you hone in on the effective dose. And then by the time you pass those efficacy milestones in early phase 2, you're starting to look towards late stage development. The formulation should be evolving towards its final commercial presentation. Something that not only delivers the right pharmacokinetic performance, but also meets the needs of manufacturing at large scales. Patient demands, patient centricity is critical, as well as the marketplace. The business teams often require certain presentations considering the competitive landscape, and the dosage form has to be able to conform to those as well. So at this stage, it's factors like patient centricity, trade dress, and scalability really come into play. And so, the real key is to connect all of these stages from early to late with a common formulation philosophy, one that ensures, continuity of performance, stability, and manufacturability throughout the program. And, that really starts again with knowing the molecule's DNA, understanding both its obvious challenges as well as its more subtle challenges. And that allows us to define a development approach that evolves naturally with the clinical program, addressing the issues in a phase appropriate manner, not tackling them all up front, but understanding which challenges need to be addressed immediately to meet the immediate goals, and which challenges can be postponed to a later date after milestone data is achieved and the investment in the formulation of the dosage form is warranted. And so that's what we do at AustinPx. We make sure the formulation strategy isn't static. It's designed to grow alongside the molecule and the development program, iterating the design as the clinical program develops. We always focus on fit for purpose strategies, focusing on the current stage, but with an eye towards the later stages as the program matures and the dosage form matures into a commercially viable product, where the clinical profile is clear, the patient need is clear, and so we're evolving that dosage form all along to meet those goals with an end, with an eye towards the end and the eventual success of the program.
And looking deeper at the molecules themselves, how do you determine whether a molecule can progress through conventional formulation approaches or requires an enabling technology?
Very good question. And again, I go back to really sort of, I like to say, studying the DNA of the molecule itself, as well as the bulk drug substance. So we always start with the science on the molecule. Here at AustinPx, that means beginning with a rigorous molecular characterization program, thorough pre-formulation effort that tells us, who the molecule really is before we even think about formulation. We're trying to understand the true nature of the molecule and the bulk drug substance. So we look at solubility, obviously, both aqueous, organic, lipid solubilities, evaluating permeability, other factors that inform biopharmaceutical performance, physical properties like melting point, really critical, especially in an enabled setting, but stability, polymorphism, all these critical attributes that will define the molecule's behavior early on and in late stage. And from there, we take all of that data, as well as information with regard to the program, the target product profile, other specifics that directed towards that particular therapy, and we'll perform a developability assessment that takes into account all of these aspects, including projected dose as well and expected exposures. So this will help us decide whether or not a conventional dosage form would be sufficient to meet the goals, both immediate and long term, or if it introduces some risks to the program in terms of bioavailability. And if it does, then we'll need to introduce enabling technologies in order to achieve the exposure needed to establish both safety and efficacy. And if we find that formulation intervention is needed, and an enabled approach has to be taken, then we have a full toolkit from particle size reduction to lipid-based systems, self-emulsifying formulation systems, and then obviously amorphous solid dispersions. That's really the foundation of the company. We have a depth of expertise in amorphous solid dispersions and characterization of those materials, as well as dosage form development and analytical characterization. And when it comes to amorphous dispersions, we of course have our own proprietary kinetisol technology. That's the state of the art of ASDs and one of our primary tools. But we also have spray drying, melt extrusion, as well as solvent anti-solvent precipitation. So we combine our rapid screening protocols with state of the art analytical biopharmaceutical tools to evaluate and rank order all of these various options and quickly identify leads, both from a scientific perspective as well as operational foresight and manufacturing stability, achieving eventual commercial goals. And all of this is done collaboratively with our clients. We share our data very transparently, so that we can make decisions together, and decisions that are grounded in data and in evidence. And our goal is always the same: find the most efficient, scalable path that unlocks the molecule's potential and sets it up for long-term success.
And finally, to wrap up, what lessons have been learned from past experiences developing amorphous drug products that can help guide formulation strategies today?
As AustinPx, we had a history of developing our own products. We were a sponsor company at one point and had up to 6 clinical assets, amorphous solid dispersion, complex drug products. We learned a lot in developing our own products. We have scars to show for it. And we like to say, we tell our clients, we bear the scars so they don't have to. Well, we can direct them away from those pitfalls. So, so one of the biggest takeaways in developing these complex products is that it requires, an integrated design mindset that it's not just about solubility enhancement and bioavailability enhancement, but they also have to deliver across not only performance, but stability, manufacturability, and even intellectual property. A number of our clients are working with APIs that are either in the public domain or have a short patent life remaining. And intellectual property on the drug product is critical. And our approach as a sponsor was to develop intellectual property around the drug product that protected that asset. So that can also factor in pretty heavily into development. So compared to conventional dosage forms, these supersaturating drug delivery systems are much more complex. First of all, you're stabilizing a much more reactive form of the drug. You're dealing with higher manufacturing demands, much more difficult to manufacture these types of dosage forms. And you're often under tighter regulatory scrutiny because the control strategy is so critical. And these advanced dosage forms bring in, other types of risks over conventional. There's also phase appropriate side to it as well. So in early development, where the goal is just to answer proof of concept questions, you don't want to over engineer the product before you know if the molecule is safe and effective. So you start with enablement of an intermediate to get you through those early studies before you start thinking about final drug product design. And then later on, you start thinking about commercial presentation and patient centricity, reducing pill burden, making sure that final dosage form is fully scalable, long-term stable, and convenient for the patient and suitable. And because we've developed so many of these complex drug products for our own clinical programs, we have as a company an incredible depth of experience, not just technically and scientifically, and in terms of engineering, but also strategically and from a regulatory perspective as well. And that's sort of, those are services we don't bill for. That's just sort of the added bonus you get in working with AustinPx. You're working with a development team that has shepherded their own assets through all the stages of development that our clients are currently in. And as I said, we bear some scars that we can help our clients avoid by giving them advice as to what to focus on and what to avoid. And so, so this history really allows us to help our clients navigate that same path. Whether it's, advanced supersaturating drug delivery systems or just conventional dosage forms, we can lead the way with a clear phase appropriate plan that balances performance, practicality, and ultimately commercial vision.
Well, thank you very much, Dave, for speaking with us today. We greatly appreciate your time and insights.
Thank you. Yeah, it was great talking with you. Once again, thank you for having me. Enjoyed the discussion very much.
We look forward to learning more about how AustinPx can help accelerate programs from concept to commercialization. Thank you all for joining us for this Xtalks Spotlight feature. We hope you enjoyed the discussion.